If your company has a compliance program, then your company needs compliance training. If you want your program to be a success, that training needs to be the best. Join Shawn Rogers and Tom Fox on Excellence in Training and learn just how good compliance training can be.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox and Shawn Rogers back for another episode. And today we are going to take up the question of maintaining visibility, measuring training effectiveness. Shawn, first of all, welcome back.
Thank you, Tom. It's good to be here.
You work for General Motors, and obviously you're exposed to lots of automobiles, and that's what General Motors is known for. But I was wondering, thinking back over the kind of not only your tenure with GM, but the history of the automobile, are there things, analogies you could draw from the manufacturing experience that might help us consider measuring training effectiveness?
Yes, I have thought much about this. And, the modern vehicle is an absolute marvel. It's stunning in its beauty and its effectiveness. And if you boil it right down, it has a very simple objective, but it's a very complex system. The objective is to simply move the occupant from point A to point B safely, and that's it. But there are so many other systems that go into a vehicle. And as I've been thinking about compliance training, the system of a vehicle that I think is most relevant is the windshield wiper system. And this might sound a little bit silly, but if you think about it, it's a very critical component of enabling the vehicle to move a passenger from one point to another, because it helps them maintain visibility. They can clearly see the road ahead. And I think that compliance training is very analogous in many ways to the windshield wiper system of a motor vehicle. So I'd like to delve into that a bit.
You bet. It sounds like a fascinating analogy. What are your thoughts?
Well, if you think about a windshield wiper, it's there at the ready anytime you need it, and its purpose is to keep the windshield clean so the driver can see clearly, to keep the car between the lines, between the guardrails. But if you look at more holistically, the windshield wipers are only one part of the vehicle safety system that is there to ensure that a passenger is safe or a driver is safe. You've got the braking system, you've got the airbags, you've got the restraint system, you've got anti-lock brakes. And so I've struggled with this concept of measuring the effectiveness of compliance training for many years. I'm constantly thinking about how I'm going to measure the effectiveness of my training program. And I think the analogy fits because if you look at a windshield wiper system, you can never look at a windshield wiper system and say, that system prevented 1,042 accidents over the past year. You simply can't say that because the windshield wiper system is part of an overall system that's designed to prevent accidents. It certainly has its contribution to the safety, but it does not. You cannot directly link crashes prevented with the wiper system directly. And I think a compliance training effectiveness measurement is the same thing. It would be absolutely unimaginable to go before your board of directors and say, this compliance training program that we're running prevented 42 instances of corruption last year by GM employees. And so even though it's relevant, I don't think you can put that level of a measurement to the training program itself. And so I've been struggling with the idea of how to measure a compliance training program. And I think that the vehicle wiper analogy fits because if you were to really boil it down, how do you know when your wipers are effective? And I think the answer to that is it keeps the windshield clean. And so how do you know your compliance training program is effective? Well, it keeps the awareness of the compliance risks in front of all the users and the learners in your organization. So these are some of the thoughts I've had about the analogy between windshield wipers and compliance training.
Shawn, could we take that a step further and then go to testing or some way to determining whether you are actually keeping the awareness in front of the employee base, the high-risk employees, the employee group that you choose to monitor most closely? Are there ways to maybe take it to another step in case a regulator comes knocking to show, yes, we are being effective in getting the information in front of the people who need the information?
I think there are, but the reason that we struggle is because it's not easy. There's not a ready solution for that. One of the most common things I see is that companies report to their board or to their stakeholders the number of training courses or the number of hours of training they've completed. And I think that is a false metric to be used for reporting the effectiveness of training, because it doesn't go to the point of whether the training itself had the desired impact. It would be like with the windshield wipers, it would be going before the engineers and saying that we have an effective windshield wiper system because it was activated 40 times last month and there were 7,000 windshield wiper swipes. That goes to the ability of the system to run, but it doesn't go to the effectiveness of the visibility. And likewise with compliance training, reporting the seat time and the hours spent and the number of courses deployed, that's an interesting aspect. I mean, and it shows that you have an active and engaged compliance training program, but it does not go to effectiveness. And so there's a couple of things that we've been trying at GM over the past year, and we've had a couple of various degrees of success with that. The first thing is we try to measure the effectiveness of the individual courses, but that only tells you about that specific course, using end of course surveys. That's good information about the course, but as a program, we need to go a little bit broader than that to measure the effectiveness. And so what we've done is as we've deployed our annual compliance training program at the first of the year, we've taken a group of the first 1,000 users that have taken the courses, and we've sent them a survey, and we've asked them several questions about what do you think about this training? Is it applicable to your job? And how do you apply this to your job? And so we get some free-form answers back about that. We also ask them about the interface and about whether they use the resources or not and what they think about the learning checks. And so we've done these surveys for the first a group of 100 people out of the first 1,000 completions. And then we waited until about halfway through our program and took a similar sample to see if the data was different for the people that weren't so aggressive in taking their training early. And we're going to complete the survey process this year by doing the same thing with the 100 final people that completed the training to see if there's a difference in attitudes between the early adopters and the last-minute training completions. And we also sent the same survey to our learning community, who are the learning specialists at GM, to see if they had a different assessment of the quality and usefulness of the training from a training professional perspective. And as we looked at the preliminary data, we've seen that they do all have different points of view about the usefulness of the training, from the early adopters to the midstream adopters to the final adopters and to our learning community. So we're just trying to gather information. So that's one way that we're measuring. But there's even a funner way that we've done this year. That's to measure the training of effectiveness. And this is with our cybersecurity course. Of course, when you take a cybersecurity course, you're trained on how to avoid emails that have suspicious phishing links in them. And so after the course was deployed, our IT group sent out phishing emails that met the criteria for being suspicious to random groups of employees to see what they would do when they got the email. Of course, it was in a controlled environment so that these emails were not dangerous. But there's a link in our Outlook email client that lets you click on a button that says report phishing. When these users receive these emails, if they click that report phishing button, they got immediate feedback saying, congratulations, you obviously are very aware of the risks of phishing emails and you did a great job by reporting that. However, if you click the link in the email, you got another message and you were asked to review the training course. So these are a couple of ways we've tried to measure whether or not our training is having an impact. And I think from the data we extrapolate from the surveys and also from the real world case studies that we're using with the cybersecurity links, those are some ways that we're able to actually tangibly measure whether or not our training is having an impact.
Shawn, it almost sounds like the question of effectiveness is an ongoing dialogue. It's an ongoing dialogue with you internally. It's an ongoing dialogue with you and your training team. It's an ongoing dialogue with the employee base, and that it's almost I don't want to say continuous improvement loop, but a continuous cycle of information going out and then coming back to you for further refinement to go out again. Would that be a fair assessment?
I think that that's exactly right, because the information that we get back from these various activities informs our development activities and our curriculum for future years. And I do think that this is the most important element of our ongoing improvement process, to send this out to the learners, to get their input, to listen to them, and then ask them again when you've implemented some of these improvements. So absolutely, I think that beyond just the ability to report the effectiveness of our training, it is a key driver in continually improving our training programs.
Well, Shawn, this has been a fascinating exploration of a question that I think bedevils many compliance professionals, yet it's something that the regulators in the form of the Department of Justice and Securities and Exchange Commission have told us that they're expecting. So I look forward to definitely continuing the dialogue on this issue.
Likewise. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Excellence in Training. Help get the word out by rating us and leaving a review.